What's up, Rumors Are True podcast? This is Joey Svensson. You may remember me from Bad Christian or Pastor with No Answers podcast, and I've got some pretty killer news. Me, my brother Jared, and your favorite podcast host, Jeremy Gold, the one delivering to you the episode you're about to listen to, started Roster Music Club. In the last 3 months, club members have enjoyed 6 online performances by some of the very artists you and I love, including Gyro from Mortal, Bill from The Throws, and Ted from Craig's Brother. We've had a couple of hangouts, have established our club's top 10 tooth and nail albums, and we started a war. That's EP Wars, 16 of the greatest EPs going head-to-head in a tournament until we crown the victor. We've been supplying curated playlists. There's a private podcast feed with extra content, and videos of everything that's ever happened in the club is yours when you join. In upcoming months, we're doing a deep dive on all things Radiohead, and as I speak, 3 musicians are listening to the club's top 10 tooth and nail releases, albums we've enjoyed for 30 years. These artists that I rounded up, they're listening to these albums for the very first time, and I can't wait to hear how they react. The Starflyer 59 Silver, Living Sacrifice Reborn, Life in General by MXPX. Hearing these albums for the first time. So we're going to talk to them for a live event, and it'll be released on the Roster Music podcast that you should be listening to if you like this podcast. Hey, the club is free to try for a month, then $10 a month from there on out. And I'll tell you this, not a club member has left since joining, so it's worth every penny. Support the club and this show by joining with this code.
RUMORS. That spells rumors.
Hey, we can't wait to see you there. Rostermusic.club. Go there now and join.
Hey, this is Seth from Watashiwa, Eager Seas and Lakes, and you're listening to the Rumors Are True podcast.
Welcome, this is Jeremy Allen Gould, and I'm coming to you today to confirm between God and of man that the rumors you have all heard are true. I started this podcast to have a platform for the bands and artists that I've worked with in the past, as well as new musicians and artists that influenced myself and many others. The Rumors Are True podcast is an opportunity for the artists to tell their story their way. I'm still in the business of confirming rumors. I still love a good conversation, and I still freaking love music. So thanks again for joining me on this journey, and I hope you like what you hear. With that said, the rumors are definitely true.
Black dress with the tights underneath. I got the breath of her last cigarette on my teeth. And she's an actress, but she ain't got no need. She's got money from her parents in a trust fund back east. Tongues always pressed to your cheeks, while my tongue is on the inside of some other girl's teeth. You tell your boyfriend, if he says he's got beef, that I'm a vegetarian and I ain't fucking scared of him.
She wants to touch me, woo. She wants to love me, woo. She'll never leave me, woo.
Don't trust her, never trust her. Won't trust her, won't trust me.
She wants to touch me, woo. She wants to love me, woo. She'll never leave me, woo.
Don't trust her, never trust her. Won't trust her, won't trust me.
Well, imagine as I'm pacing the pews in a church corridor, and I can't help but to hear, no, I can't help but to hear an exchanging of words. What a beautiful wedding, what a beautiful wedding, says a bridesmaid to a waiter. Yes, but what a shame, the poor groom's bride is a whore. I chime in with a haven't you people ever heard of closing a goddamn door? No, it's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poison rationality. I chime in, haven't you people ever heard of closing a goddamn door? No, much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of
Hey, welcome to this latest episode of the Rumors Are True podcast. My name is Jeremy, and today I welcome the legendary producer, Matt Squire. You know Matt from his work with the bands Panic at the Disco, All Time Low, Underoath, One Direction, Ariana Grande, 303, and about a billion other bands. So honored to have Matt on this podcast to hear his perspective about his journey through music, his production, and of course his early bands as well. So I hope you enjoy this latest episode with Matt Squire.
Chime in with the haven't you people ever heard of closing a goddamn door? No, it's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poison rationality. I chime in, haven't you people ever heard of closing a goddamn door? No, it's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of hope.
Hey Matt, what is up, my friend? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great to meet you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely, man. Super honored to have you on. I'd like to thank our mutual friend Nate Shoemaker for setting this up. Nate, known from the Burning Paris and Everdown and so many great bands over the years. Super amazing guy. And it was really cool because he hit me up and said, "Hey, would you like to have Matt Squire on?" I'm like, yes, please. And next thing you know, we're talking. Super honored to have you on again, like I said, and thank you, Nate.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to connect, and especially by Nate, because we go way back. And in fact, as a producer, Burning Paris is one of my very first projects.
Really?
Yes, their first EP. And it was just a fun, like the way I used to work back then was I just charged a very, very small dollar amount per song because I didn't know what I was doing, and I figured that would compensate for me kind of taking the extra learning curve time.
Sure.
And it ended up being like taking a lot of pressure out of the process. And we ended up doing a lot of that EP in their house, and it was just
Wow.
fun, and
That's
everybody
awesome.
was just hanging. We were making the record at the same time, but it was also just kind of part of a hang, and it really set the stage for the way I like to do things even to this day. So really, really cool dude, great band, and just a great community. So much fun.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. That's really heartwarming. Just, having known him, he's just a sweetheart, like you said, and I could see that being such a cool experience for both of you guys and the band in
100%.
general. So awesome.
100%.
Well, Matt, I would like to know what's up in your world currently. What's new in your world?
Well, year's coming to a close, which is always an interesting time. This is a time where like music industry kind of shuts down a little
Mhm.
bit, and I tend to not shut down ever. I'm a pretty lucky dude. I've gotten to do music for my career, and I don't take it for granted. So I try and stockpile a lot of ideas during this time because there's nobody to really connect with. So I figure I'll use the time to just write songs, finish productions. I usually try and catalog a bunch of ideas that I'll use in the year for songwriting sessions or production stuff. Learn new tricks. I'm learning new tools all the time, and just trying to always stay sharp and keep at it. And so this year, no different, just in that phase now where I'm stockpiling stuff. I just had the new Jairus Johnson single come out on the 5th. So that was really fun. And Jairus is like an amazing collaborator, an amazing friend. So that was fun. I didn't expect to have a release in December. I don't usually. So that was kind of nice. And I have January is typically a slow time as well, but this year's different. I have the home team coming in right on January 5th, like right at the
Wow,
drop.
right at the gates. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really, really cool band. They came here to my studio in DC. I have a studio in DC, and then I also commute to LA. And sort of spend 2 weeks in each location per month. But the home team came out here in March to do some writing. We really hit it off. They're great dudes. And now they're coming back in January to finish what we started. So
Very cool.
it's gonna be good. I think next year's gonna be fun.
That's awesome, man. You love the DC area. You said born and raised there. What do you love? What do you hate?
I'm a DC kid, man. I actually, so here's my theory. I think every town, every location, every place that I've lived has their own brand of twisted, messed up
Sure.
stuff, you know? And I grew up here, so the DC twisted, messed up stuff is home for me. I
Yeah.
love the sort of,
The grime.
and I mean, it is a very, very strange place, and the political climate and that feeling sort of trickles down to every piece of our existence here. And so I think for me, because I've also lived in LA too, and LA has their own brand of twisted,
Mm,
messed up, and I didn't like their brand quite as much. So, and my wife's from here too. So when we started our family, we were kind of like, I don't know, like let's move back, which we did, and I'm psyched that we did that. But I mean, even musically, my education and my upbringing was all DC punk rock. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
the
wearing a
hardcore.
Minor Threat shirt,
Yep.
like
Discord. Yeah.
that was my thing. Like, so I don't know how much of the lore people know about Discord Records. But the early records, Minor Threat, Teen Idols, SOA, like all that stuff, was funded by this guy, Skip Croft. Skip ran a mom and pop record store called Yesterday and Today Records around here, about 10 minutes down the street from where I am now. And that was where I bought all my vinyl when I was a kid. It just was the closest record store
Sure.
to me. And because he funded those records, the musicians who played in those bands worked at the store to
That's so
work
cool.
off,
That's
yeah,
so
to
awesome.
work off the advance. Like that was their deal, right? So like Ian Mackay from Fugazi worked at Yesterday and Today Records. And I used to go in there like 12 years old as like a total punk rock kid, spiked hair, Sid Vicious shirt, like not a hardcore kid, like a real punk
Punk.
rock
Yeah.
kind of kid. And he used to spend hours talking to me, which was like so so above and beyond, like
Yeah.
nothing that I ever asked for or expected. And he just was cool, very down to earth. He would tell me all sorts of stories. I asked him one of my favorite moments was I asked him about the X's on the hands, the straight
Hmm.
edge thing.
Yeah.
Um, because at that time we were a little past those early days, and it was really the New York hardcore kids who had embraced the X's and made it this sort of
Hmm.
branding thing. And he was very disappointed by that.
Interesting.
I mean, he told me for like literally like an hour. He was like, it was never supposed to be a club. It was never supposed to be exclusive. He said we had plenty of friends who drank and did drugs. It was never about that, although we didn't, and I
Mhm.
don't, so I took that part to heart. But the what he said was so fascinating. He said that the DC punk rock bands, Minor Threat included, wanted to play for their friends at the local clubs, 930 Club in particular, which is like our most
Great
famous.
venue. Yeah.
That's like the best. And at that time it was the smaller 930 Club, the original, which was wild place. But he said they wanted to play there. Clubs wouldn't let them play because they were underage. And he said, being a DC kid, I mean, this is just so Ian. He looked up the laws in the district, and the laws said that you could not discriminate against an,
Interesting.
an act who could draw enough fans. There was like all this very specific stuff but was underage. That was age discrimination, and you can't do that. So he went back to the owners of the 930 Club and he said, yo, it's against the law. Against the law.
That's incredible.
Right. And then they came up with a compromise that the owner said, well, we don't want to serve underage kids. That's our concern. We don't want kids getting wasted
Sure.
and,
Sure.
the liability. And the band said, well, we'll mark ourselves.
Yeah.
We'll put this X on our hands so the bartenders have no confusion. If we're underage, we're marked. Nobody will serve us. And they got to play matinee shows that way. And it's a cool lesson because it's a win-win. It's like they weren't asking to take a slot from the evening, right? That's 930
Yeah.
Club's money. They were asking to add a slot in the afternoon. And
Everybody wins.
yeah, everybody
Yeah.
wins. And that was the real spirit of early hardcore. It was a community thing. It was about inclusion. You were encouraged to be a freak and you were allowed to be a freak.
Mhm.
And I really, really take that to heart. I think music is a strange community, as I've now sort of seen all sides of it, because I've been very fortunate in my career to work in all sorts of different genres and all sorts of different artists and overseas, and I've done all this amazing stuff and just been completely blessed. And the thing that I find is that not all the genres and not all the communities have that same spirit
Mhm.
of, hey, you can be a freak,
Mhm.
right? Like, I don't know if music isn't a place where you can be a freak, then we've really lost something.
Mm.
Because it's like, I understand you can't be a total maniac and become a great attorney, or maybe you can, but like I wouldn't want, a maniac to be my surgeon, right? So
Sure.
there's certain disciplines that like really have weeded out sort of the more eccentric folks,
Yeah.
which I get and I respect. But music shouldn't be like that. Music should be like, hey, Kurt Cobain can have just as big of a career as
Sure.
Britney Spears, as, Jimi Hendrix or whatever. Like, you should be allowed to be weird in
Mhm.
music. And so I feel like DC, that record store, those people who like formed my early ideas of what this should and shouldn't be about have been really, really helpful as I navigate my career. Because I just, like I said, have been so lucky. Like I don't have, I mean, I'm known for emo and alternative. That's always going to be my main lane. But I've ventured all sorts of other places in my career too. And I try and like keep in my heart, like, yeah, you had a bad day, like, cool. I don't care. You're
Yeah.
feeling emotional, like
Yeah.
whatever, like that's part of it. And we're musicians and let's write a song about it. Or, like
Yeah.
let's include it. Let's not make you feel like you have to be cool all the time or have to have your stuff together or whatever. Like,
Sure.
I feel like music's a place where we're allowed to be a little bit rough.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I love that. It's really awesome. You said that. That's yeah, they're very, very cool and profound. So that's awesome to hear that. You mentioned going to that record store as a young person. Talk me through some of those growing up times, some of those records, some of those bands, you know, kind of put you in the direction that you've went in.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I came in sort of second wave. Like Minor Threat had already happened, Bad Brains had already happened. And so Brian Baker from Minor Threat was now in Dag Nasty.
Mm,
Dag Nasty, Wig Out at Danko's was their second record and their second singer. But I didn't know any of that. That was the first Discord record I ever bought. And I can see it in my head. And the guitar sound on the song Trying is still like the sound of guitar that like
mm,
I still go for and still think about. It was a Les Paul. I knew it was a Les Paul. I actually this is wild. Like I've never met Brian Baker, but like I just was at an event where he was at and I I yelled across to him and I said, yo, we went to the same high school. And he was like, Georgetown Day School? Like, and he lit up. And then I meant to be like, dude, how did you get the guitar sound on Trying? But like we came out of orbit. So I wasn't able to like finish my thought with him. But that was like my first like I think what was amazing about it and what was transformative about it was that this was a band on a record. And previous to that, I had bought many cassettes and records, but the bands were really unattainable. They lived in LA or they
Yep.
lived in Europe and they were huge rock stars. And I had no access. But like here I am at the mom and pop record store buying records by the bands who were behind the counter. And I'm like, this is something that I can do. And that was the first real revelation of like, hey, I want to be in music. It's pretty far away for like a 12-year-old kid to become Slash or whatever from Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean? Like
No,
that's
I
my
get it.
dream. But like I might be able to be like
Yeah.
one of these kids, you know? And so that was really, really helpful. And I think it's so interesting because that spirit, that DIY spirit became the entire music business.
Yeah.
That's what it is now. It's kids going on TikTok being like, I have an idea. What do you guys think? Should I finish this song? And people are like, yeah, you should finish it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's become completely DIY. Like those Discord kids, that business model, that became the music industry, the whole thing. That's exactly what it is now. So it was really helpful for me to go and hear those records. I'd say Dag Nasty was early for me. Um, the Minneapolis bands like Soul Asylum and the Replacements,
Great band.
that was really, really big for me. Those guys were writing sloppy pop songs
Yeah.
and just really like amazing stuff, especially the Replacements. I just have such a soft spot for that band that they just amazing. And then a lot of my influences are what I would call mod, but I don't think it's the right term. But like I was really into like late 80s gothy, The Cure,
Oh, I love
The
that stuff. Yeah.
Smiths, Flesh for Lulu, Susie, like a lot of that post-punk new wave stuff. Just loved The Church,
Mm.
and all that stuff I bought on vinyl. And so all my sensory impressions and all my sonic impressions are really based on vinyl. And then on the flip side, around that time, age 12 to 14, I started going to shows. And the 930 Club that I mentioned before
Mhm.
was like, that was the place, but it was a scary place.
Yeah.
Like it was in DC before DC, like they've kind of made it nicer in the past couple of decades. Like it wasn't nice back then. It was scary.
I
And
believe it.
like 930 Club was in the Peep Show district. So it's like you go down to F Street and it was literally like out of a movie. It was like 50 cents, come in here. Like peep shows,
Unbelievable.
the whole block. And then there was the 930 Club. And so you would go, or at least I am like, I'm like a tiny dude. I'm like 5'4". It's like way tinier back then. And I would like go into the 930 Club and just be like petrified. It
Yes.
smelled
I
like
get that.
patchouli. It was dirty. There were
Grimy.
like
Yeah.
scary people all around, and they had like, just scary. And I was just like, whoa, like this place is scary. Like just
Yeah.
horrified. And something about that fear and then walking in and hearing the sound became like my early sensory impressions of like what a record should sound like. The kick and the snare in the PA at 930 Club sounded, it just like
Resonated.
grabbed you.
Yeah.
And it's still the drum sound that I go for to this day. The sound guy was this guy named Gus Sounds. And like he's my hero. Like literally that's my kick and snare. And I remember just going in there and being like equally horrified and exhilarated at the same time. And I think that spirit is what I bring to records. I don't I don't make chill records. I make really like, you
Yeah.
know, records that kind of reach out of the speakers and grab you. And I think all that sensibility was formed from those early days, from the record store to the 930 Club. I can remember one of my most distinct impressions was going to see Henry Rollins band
Oh, nice.
at 930, and this was when he was like big.
Beefcake.
Like, yeah, like and it was weird because all of the hardcore kids and all the punk rockers were these scrawny, like nobody worked out. Like that was weird. Like,
Yeah.
and people, and there were rumors about Henry, that he had gone this direction, and everybody was like, what's going on? Like Henry works out. That was like a big thing. Like not everybody worked out in those days. Like it was really weird. And so I just remember walking in, and then I was really into Jawbox. So Liquid
I
Boy,
love Jawbox.
yeah, Liquid Boy, who was the drummer of Government Issue, and then Jay Robbins, who was the
Mhm.
bass player of Government Issue. They were playing like their very early shows opening this Rollins band show. And I walked in, Liquid Boy was on, and Peter Moffat's like was like my drumming hero. Like, dude was
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. And I'm like watching Peter, and then I look over to my right, and the dressing room is like downstairs at the original 930 Club. And usually people just go down and say hi, and there's like merch down there and whatever. But this night, Henry was blocking the dressing room, watching the opening bands and flexing and not saying a word to anybody. He was in gym shorts and nothing else. And he was just standing there. And I find out later, or I sort of deduced later, that this was all for show. This was also people would tell stories like I'm telling right now. Like Henry had figured out how he wanted to be a celebrity, and it was just a whole thing. But I didn't understand that at the time.
Sure.
I just remember being like, holy shit, this dude is so
Intense.
scary. I mean, just scary. Nobody would go near him. He was just flexing for about an hour, right? And then I'll never forget it. Like Jawbox leaves the stage. They were second opener. Rollins band takes the stage, and everybody's there. And he stood in that spot waiting until he knew the band was set. And then as soon as the band was set and ready, they gave him a signal, and he ran up the stage and grabbed the mic and just
Went in it for it.
like I've never that band at that time was so tight and so intense, and he was so intense. Like I'll never forget the minute that set started, people were just
That's
like
nuts.
yeah, it was amazing. And it's a real reminder. I mean, as we look towards the future of music, there is there is something to be retained about that kind of human energy.
Sure.
Um, I'm very open to new technologies and all sorts of stuff. So it's not a, oh my God, like the computers are taking over. I don't care about that. I just think that the energy needs to be retained somehow, because I still talk about moments like that.
Absolutely.
I think it's important for kids to still be able to talk about stuff like that, and to still have those sensory impressions.
Absolutely. Were you like you mentioned being at the shows and 930 Club and of course hearing the kick and the snare, did you position yourself behind the soundboard? Were you just watching the movements of that? Were you watching the band? Like what
So
was
I was so little that I didn't have much choice at the
yeah.
930 Club. So I know exactly where I stood, which was right by the doorway. It's like the last place that you can be. And the reason the sound is so meaningful to me is that I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
So I really heard these bands and could kind of lurch my neck every once in a while and like catch something, but like there were no TV screens or anything,
Yep.
it's just so it's a funny question that you ask, and it has a lot to do with my
Makes sense.
life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like I couldn't see. I have no visual sensibility at all. I'm a completely auditory guy, and that's part of that story.
That's awesome and really cool. I don't know why that just popped in my head, but I was thinking because you were like, that you mentioned the sound guy being your idol or your who you looked up to, and I'm like, because like I tour managed and promoted shows, but I loved going to shows and I consumed all like you mentioned, but I would always watch like the tour manager or I always watch the sound guy, just those people that are a part of it but not the main draw, and
Yep.
it was always interesting to me.
Yeah,
And
no, I definitely identify with it. For me, it was more like records that I would buy. I would like listen to, and I'd be like, there's somebody else there,
yeah.
right? Like, because it was very opaque at that time. Like, you didn't have the internet and you weren't like looking at behind the scenes footage all day long. It was like somebody made a record as this mysterious thing. The Cure made a record and it's all gothed out. Like,
Sure.
you have no clue. But there was always one line on the record that said produced by blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there's somebody else there.
The man
I,
behind the curtain.
I want to be that guy. That's what for some reason, I
Yeah.
don't know why. I just was like, I want to be that guy. And that's exactly what I became.
It's amazing. That's awesome. Well, before we get into your production career, I'm just curious. Kind of talk me through some of those early bands. I know you mentioned earlier opening for Vanilla Ice, and Wichita, and yeah, kind of bring me through some of those early bands. And did you kind of figure out once you started playing music that might not be the path you wanted to go as a member, more of the production? Yeah, kind of just bring me through those first bands and kind of what led you into production.
Yeah, so I was always the kid with the 4 track, and I had a basement, and all my bands rehearsed in my basement. So the recording and the rehearsing and the live stuff is all integrated. I was always that guy. But I was in 2 early punk rock bands, one called Rise and one called Polluted Youth. And Rise, I was the drummer, Polluted Youth, I was the guitar player. It's all mixed in, like I say. It was our community. So these were my best friends. Practice at my house was like our hang, and we had a lot of friends come through, and my house was like the house, right? And then the recording was this like added flex and this added thing where I was just fascinated by it. And that's why I played drums in one band and guitar in the other, because I was processing how do you make drums sound good
Mm,
with microphones, and how do you make guitar sound good? I'm completely self-taught. No education at all. It's just I've been doing trial and error recording since I was about 10 years old. You
wow,
know, and so the early bands that I was in, I'm still friends with some of those
that's
people,
great.
which is insane. And they were really rooted in hardcore and punk. The band Rise that I played for as the drummer, that became more the dominant project, and we got embraced into the hardcore scene. Our name changed to Ashes at a certain point, and we were really a part of the straight edge hardcore
Oh,
scene
cool.
in every city. We played the hardline festivals in Ohio. We were in Jersey all the time, Pennsylvania. We were flown out to California. We were signed to Revelation.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, they had a pop imprint on Revelation called Network Sound that we were signed to. And the Revelation guys flew us out, and we played shows with like Sensefield and
Oh my,
Far
I love those
Side and
bands.
Outspoken and Strife. I mean, it was just so cool. And I mean, I was 14, I think.
What?
Yeah, we were really, really young.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And so it was a really like, I think like the age also helped us in a way, because I think everybody was like, these guys are like our little brother and sister. We had a female singer. So it's like we were like the younger siblings of the crew, and it was just so fun. And like I said earlier, like the communal aspect of
Hmm.
that the fact that we were embraced, and that we were rough around the edges, and we were kids, and nothing. We we weren't like entrepreneurs in the way
Sure.
that like young artists today, like they know how to promote themselves and they're running a business and they've got
Yeah.
everything organized and they've got all their content. And it's like, dude, we were like nuts, just like, and it was amazing that we even showed up to the show. I mean, it was just we were absolutely out of our minds,
So your parents were okay with you at 14?
My parents did not know. Some of the parents in the band did know. I had divorced parents, and they must have been in some serious denial because I would like tell my mom I was at my dad's house for the weekend and my dad I was at my mom's house for the weekend. And I would literally be in like Toledo,
Oh my God.
like far, like 14 hours away from here. The craziest moment of that was we played with Shelter in Indianapolis, and I was 15 at the time, but our bass player was 16, and we started our journey home from Indiana, which is about 13 hours, at about 1 a.m., which is
Oh
stupid.
my God.
And we wrecked about 2 hours from home. We were about Hagerstown, and we flipped that car. I don't remember the actual accident. I woke up and the car was on its side, and I was looking up at the sky, and the bass player and my other friend were already out of the car, and they were like, "Yo, the car's gonna blow up. Like, get out of the car." And I
Unbelievable.
jumped out the passenger window, and the car did not blow up. Somebody stopped by the side of the road and helped us put the car back down, and we actually drove that car
That's
home.
not.
But it was totaled by the insurance company the next day. So it was like hanging on by a thread.
Oh my gosh.
My parents never knew about that accident. I just walked in the house and I just didn't say shit. I was just
Oh
like,
my God.
my mentality was like, I think I had a sense even at that young age that I was living a pretty weird life and pretty lucky as a kid. And I didn't want anybody to mess it up. I just didn't
Yeah.
want anybody in my way, whether they be a parent or a friend or
You were on
whatever.
a mission. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I really was, and I really have been the whole time. I think the lucky thing, and to sort of segue into like my production career and sort of where it all went, uh, is that I was like a real weird kid, like black punk rock t-shirt, Chuck Taylors, no friends in school, huge headphones. All I had was like these other punk rock heroes that I was looking up
Mm,
to. And I think if I had not found music or found punk rock specifically, I don't think I would have made it. Just to be honest, like I just think some kids are just a little tortured and a little weird, and I was definitely one of them. And it really meant a lot to me to find these other tortured souls
that
where
you could
like,
connect with.
yeah, and also like everybody was really permissive of like, oh dude, that guy freaked out. Like if I freaked out, I was always welcomed back. And it
Sure.
didn't matter if I freaked out on somebody. I was always forgiven, and everybody was always forgiven in that scene. It was always like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
I know you had shitty parents, or like whatever. Like everybody just was cool. And
Yeah.
that's fair. It turns out as an adult, I look back on that and I go, oh man, that was very precious and very unique. There's very few friend groups that do that for each other. A lot of friend groups that I see, and I have kids now and I see it, are very exclusive. And if you make a mistake or whatever, you're like out. And like
Mm,
my friend group was not like that. So I I recently, and this is a big segue, and we can sort of walk back into how I got into production and all that
sure.
stuff. But you know, my main lane of production has been emo, alternative,
Hmm.
Panic at the Disco, Boys Like Girls, All Time Low, 303, and that sort of like 2005 to
Yeah.
2010 sweet spot. And the amazing thing about that music is that it kind of had a resurgence a little while ago, and it became popular
Yeah.
again with kids. And so I very rarely go to shows, but there was a festival this past summer called When We Were Young.
Yeah. In Vegas.
And like Panic at the Disco, arguably my biggest project, one of my biggest projects. It was a 20-year anniversary of the first album, which is an album that I did, really launched my career, launched their career. And they were headlining the festival, playing that album in its entirety. And that was one of the draws of the whole entire festival. And I was like, I can't not go,
Yeah.
you
Totally.
know? And in fact, they had hit me up about 2 months prior because they didn't have all the tracks and I had to like do some repair and send some stuff over. So I was involved in it. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna go, you know? And the most fascinating thing is they were playing All Time Low was playing, Boys Like Girls was playing a lot of my bands. So many, like even bands that I've written with, Weezer, Simple Plan, Taking Back Sunday, like,
Mhm.
bands that I've had a smaller part in, The Used, like everybody was there, everybody was
That's
playing,
so
and I
cool.
hadn't seen all these people in years and years and years. So I go to Vegas and just getting into the festival is a nightmare. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So many people, it's 120,000 kids.
Jeez.
And dude, like it was just surreal for me because like there were kids who were dressed up as the characters on the Panic at the Disco album cover. So many in these mime costumes and they were ready, you know? And then there were all these other kids who were wearing shirts of like 303 or Boys Like Girls or All Time Low or like bands that I've
Sure.
worked with and The Main and whatever. And I just looked around at that audience and I was just like, it's 120,000 kids that all remind me of me when I was 15 and
That's
tortured,
that's
troubled.
awesome.
It was such a moment, man. Like, and I'm rarely nostalgic
Mhm.
or I'm not like the most readily emotional guy, you know what I mean? And I just was like, hey, I've actually done something,
Yeah.
which is just a weird feeling because it's like I think every human being has this desire to have a legacy,
Absolutely.
think that's like one of our core things. My main legacy is my kids. I got three daughters. They're amazing. My wife and I are great parents, and that's it. So this was a bonus legacy. This was like a
Absolutely.
work legacy. And I was like, huh, I never really I never saw that coming. And it wasn't about, oh, I've sold this many records or I've had
Sure.
hits or I don't care about that stuff. It's great, it's amazing. But this was like soul. This was
Yeah.
like, oh, like 20% of these kids without this music would have
Gateway.
been would have
Yeah.
been out the window, just like me without the Discord stuff, and the hardcore kids and all that stuff. I would have been out a window. These kids are the same kid. So that was like really, really meaningful for me. And it's like, that U2 song where it's like, I still haven't found what I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
Great song.
Right. Because just even that lyric is so like human, right? It's like
Hmm.
so true. And I was like, I think I found what I was looking for. Like, this is amazing.
That's
Like,
so cool.
yeah, because it's like, I don't know. I've never taken, I've been blessed in music and I've worked with all sorts of like pop acts and like done all this crazy stuff too, where it's like I have like accolades or whatever, but I'm not the biggest producer by any stretch. And I don't have like a bunch of Grammys. And there's definitely producers who are way more like successful than me. But like, I feel like the soulful legacy is much more powerful.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, okay, these kids wearing black shirts that like feel like they were saved by emo, that's enough for me. It's that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so it's been an interesting thing because I have been so much more at peace in my whole entire being since that When We Were Young fest.
Oh,
Just from that moment of seeing all those kids and being like, hey, I have kids too, they're pretty well rounded and they're, popular and all that stuff, but like, should they have like a rough patch or something like that? Like, who knows if it's music that gets them through, maybe it's some other thing, but
sure.
like you want to pay that kind of thing forward. So it's really meaningful and, a really lucky thing that I was able to be a part of all that. And that a lot of the songs that I did, it's funny, at When We Were Young, it's like all those bands have gone on to do tons of stuff. Panic at Disco's huge success. They've had huge hits. Boys Like Girls, All Time Low, like all these bands. But it's like some of their biggest songs are the ones that I did in their first albums, like, and have
Unbelievable.
stood the test of time all the way through 20 years. And I'm just like, damn, that's so cool.
It
Like,
is cool.
we didn't care. We weren't trying. We
Yeah.
didn't, you shouldn't have to mean to,
Yeah.
right? And we didn't. We were just like, I remember most of those records as like problem solving. I write since
Interesting.
not, I write since not tragedies was like we just didn't have enough songs in the album. We were just writing songs in the studio. Like,
Did they come to you or did you yeah,
yeah.
how did that all kind of happen?
So I had, like I said earlier, I'd been recording my bands in the basement forever, and I'd been sort of developing my skills, but I was not like a professional guy. Um, but I just started really committing to it. So I did the early Boston stuff, Burning Paris, Cancer Conspiracy, The Explosion was all like
Oh,
me
cool.
still sort of like cutting my teeth, right?
Sure.
Then I moved back here to DC to like open a studio and do it for real. I did a record by a band called North Star,
Mm.
and they were really good friends with Taking Back Sunday, and it started a little bit of a buzz. And then I did a record by a band called The Receiving End of Sirens,
Oh yeah.
which was just the most fun. I mean, we had so much fun, the greatest dudes, and like just had such a great time. And that had a little bit more of like a programming aspect to it. And then I got a demo from Crush Management, and it was two Panic songs attached to it. And this band is interested in working with you, what do you think? Right. And this is all really small scale. I mean, we're talking indie
Mm-hmm.
band, I think wasn't signed yet, but like Pete Wentz was forming his record label just to sign him. It was really, really small potato stuff. And I heard the demos and I was like, this is amazing. Like these guys are amazing. Like the singer's good. I was like, this is
Mm-hmm.
great. I have to do it. Just have to do it. And so I emailed Scott back. Scott was their manager and still is. And I was like, yeah, I'm into this. Like, let's figure it out. Like, whatever. And then I got a sort of wind that it was between me and another producer, that there
Mm.
was two, and this is a new situation for me. I'd never been in like a competitive situation before. So I'm like, and I'm thinking like, I got to get this record. So I had the Receiving End of Sirens guys call the Panic guys and vouch for me
Wow.
and tell them, hey, you should work with Matt because this, and that, and like whatever. And it not like with a whip, but just like, hey, could you call these guys and like put in a
Yeah,
good,
put in a word for me.
right? Yeah, and that ended up working. And so Panic came to me. The budget was nil. I think it was like $10,000 and change,
Oh my God.
to do the whole entire
That's
record.
mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't thinking, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
this was so small. Like this was this just tiny stuff where like basically the climate was that Fall Out Boy was starting to have success, right? But like it wasn't the same thing. Like everybody lumps Green Day and Blink and all that stuff in with what we were doing, and it wasn't that way. It looks that way now.
Hmm.
Those bands were way removed from Fall Out Boy and what became. And so it was like Fall Out Boy's having some success and people are excited about that, but nobody's thinking like, oh my God, this stuff's gonna be huge. So Panic Comes to Me, they only had 5 songs and they had a bunch of like riffs and like just like these little demos. And Sins was something called Flam Song, and it was just the chorus. Down, down,
Mm.
down, 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 down. That's all it was. There was no vocals, there was
Wow.
no verse, there was no anything else. And so in pre-production, in the first part of that record, we wrote a lot of the other songs, including that one. And, the song was written on guitar. And one thing we were really trying to be conscious of on Panic was we didn't want them to sound like Fall Out Boy, even though they sounded exactly like Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, I get
So it was
that.
like, what do we do? And so I say it was a problem-solving thing because I thought the band kept saying to me, they were like 19-year-old kids, they'd never played a show. And they were like,
Wow.
yo, like we sound like Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy's our favorite band, and Fall Out Boy's signing us. Like, but we don't want to sound like we don't want to be like Diet Fall Out Boy. Like, what do we do? And I was like, check this out, right? And I gave them Jellyfish Spilt Milk. I don't know if you know that Jellyfish record,
Mm.
but it's like Jellyfish was this like hippied out revival band that like sounded like Queen and the Beatles and all
Yeah,
this stuff. And the band was a commercial failure pretty much, but like the production was like
mind-boggling.
unbelievable and backup vocals and strings and like all sorts of orchestration. So I was like, here, take this home. And they really, really bought into that Jellyfish album. And that's what started all the Beatles obsession and Queen. And
Wow,
they were never into any of that. They didn't know
that's
anything about any of that stuff. Jellyfish,
insane.
the gateway drug. And that's what we did. We very strategically, very calculating, we said, okay, this is the thing. We take this spirit of hippiedom and add it to the Fall Out Boy thing, it will keep you in enough so that it makes sense that Pete signed you and you're in their scene,
Sure.
but it'll remove you enough to be unique. And that's what we did. So like Sins was written on guitar, and we were like, that's too metal. If we put it on strings, it will be unique. And that's where Sins came from. So it's really just it's a lot of problem solving. It's so funny because I was just talking about When We Were Young festival, and I got to hang with Brendan and Spencer from Panic for the first time in ages. Like
Yeah,
we just had not really hung out. It wasn't like a bad blood thing. It was just they went and did the second record with somebody else and they went on their journey and I went on my journey and
sure.
whatever. So we got to hang. And it was like we told each other that story. But we recount it with 100% accuracy.
That's amazing.
Everything that we went down memory lane on, and it's been 20 years. We went down memory lane, and the manager Scott was watching us have this conversation. And after we were done, and Brennan went back to his trailer, I was talking to Scott, and I was like, "Man, they remember everything perfectly." And he was like, "Dude," he was like, "You remember everything perfectly." He was like, "What I just witnessed was crazy because you guys both remember with crystal clear. It's no game of telephone, no rewriting, no rose-colored glasses, no anything. Like we all remember exactly like
Well, it
flashbulb
changed
memory.
your lives. I mean, that record
It
changed your
did.
lives.
It did, and they're cool guys. They're humble guys. They are real people, and so they didn't rewrite it as like with any ego or anything like that. You know what I mean? It was just really verbatim, like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And, Brendan had lost his voice for pretty much the whole process and was sick. And he remembered me getting him a telephone call with Mark Baxter, the vocal coach, who like coached him through it and all this stuff. And we just crystal clear memory on all that stuff. So it was really special. It was really, really fun. But yeah, that was Sins. And, that record changed, to your point, changed our lives. My thinking at the time was I'll just be the Panic at the Disco guy. And that will I'll do some indie records on the side, but like that'll be my success. And they ended up not wanting to work with me on the record too, which
What was that
very
like?
complicated.
Yeah. What was that like?
It was just what happened was those guys were like an overnight success. And in the community, especially in the punk rock community, you get a lot of hate for that. And so what people kept saying on news groups and stuff like that was like, these kids are 19, like they've never played a show. Like Matt Squire must have written he must have written.
Wow.
That's what they kept saying. And like the truth is much grayer than that. The truth is like, yeah, we all kind of did what we had to do to get the record done, so obviously I did some writing, I did a lot of production, but like
Sure.
I'm not taking anything away from the band. The band was so talented and they were visionary, and
You just helped guide them.
it was a beautiful
Yeah.
collaboration,
Yeah.
but they were very insecure about that feedback. They did not want to have their audience buy into that narrative that I was the one. And so it was very important for them on record too to prove, hey, it was
Sure.
just us. They didn't even use a producer on the second record. It's like a glorified engineer and a string arranger. And like
Wow.
everything was supposed to be them. And that was because they really wanted to prove we can do it. I was devastated, super bummed. And then I was kind of like, all right, well, I don't know, dude, like maybe it's an opportunity, maybe I should like see if I can have another band be successful, because maybe then it's the same thing. It's like, hey, well, it wasn't just them. I was there too, and I can do it again.
Sure.
It became my sort of guiding call. And I do think in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise, because I went on to do Boys Like Girls, Cute Is What We Aim For, All Time Low, 303, The Cab, The Main. It was all, and like, if you look back in hindsight, I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but if you look back in hindsight, it was like, oh, you don't want to work with me on record too? Bam, 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 bam. Here's 6 more projects that I'm a part of that are all big,
Yeah.
eat it, right? And like all in fun. No,
Sure.
no,
Sure.
not like not with a
Mean-spirited.
bitter
Yeah.
taste, but just with like yeah, okay, fine. You want to prove that you could do it without me, I'll prove that I can do it without you. And that's what I ended up doing. So I think that was really lucky, because I had this huge run in emo. And then as emo started to, people don't like to admit it because it came back a few years ago, but like
Mhm.
emo became a real dirty word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Maybe 2011, people were like, nobody wanted guitars. Nobody wanted high singing. Nobody wanted like tight
Yeah.
strings and like it just became like super uncool. And so I just, we had just started our family as a game of survival. I was like, what else can I do?
Hey, this is Jeremy with the Rumors Are True podcast. Are you looking to spice up your meals with something real? Introducing Voyager Hot Sauce. Born in Seattle, rooted in the heart of Jalisco, Mexico, and built on community, quality, and excellence. Crafted in fresh small batches with agave nectar for the perfect sweet heat. Voyager is more than just a hot sauce. It's a symbol of gathering, authentic connection, and flavor that brings people together. Whether it's tacos, eggs, pizza, or cocktails, Voyager goes on everything. Head over to VoyagerHotSauce.com to hear their story, explore recipes, and place your order today.
It turned out like a lot of the Disney kids grew up listening to like all
Oh
time.
yeah, I think I had heard that, a lot of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so like Demi Lovato, huge Rocket to the Moon fan. I did that album. Selena Gomez, huge fan. Ariana, One Direction, Big Time Rush, all that crew of pop were like grew up listening to my records. So I was able to like segue into working with that generation of kid. And it was a very, very lucky thing because at that time, Disney kids started making music that was on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Before Miley, that didn't exist. Miley broke that ceiling where it's like Disney had their own radio and everything was very kid-like and everything was very safe.
Yeah.
And then it was like Miley, like it was a song "See You Again," and it just blew up on pop radio, and it became like okay for Disney kids and boy bands that were younger and all that stuff to like have real songs. So that's when I came in, was to try and give One Direction and Ariana like these sort of hybrid hits where it could be like edgy enough to work on a radio, but like young enough to still like not alienate their Nickelodeon and Disney fan bases. It was
Sure.
a very, very nuanced thing that I was called on to do, and it was tremendous fun. I mean, it's just a blast. Like,
What's the difference working with somebody like that compared to, like you mentioned, Panic at the Disco or All Time Low, and working with a different kind of artist? I mean, is there a major difference, or is it kind of just the same?
it is different. So, well, there's similarities and differences, right? So it's interesting because it dovetails with what we were talking about earlier about community, right? Is the hardcore scene that I grew up in was like very inclusive and very fun. And you could be a shitty band and you could be a great band and you could break all your stuff on stage, or I mean, it just was so fun, and so inclusive. And I loved that. Then getting into the more mainstream emo stuff with like Panic and Boys Like Girls and All Time Low, that kind of stuff started to become music industry like,
Hmm.
and it wasn't so community oriented anymore. And that's why I was so surprised when Panic did their second record with somebody else, or like Boys Like Girls did the same thing. Everybody had me do their first, stuff, and then they would move on to other people. And I was like, growing up in hardcore, like loyalty was like a thing.
Sure,
So it was
absolutely.
very, very weird. So that was a big difference in terms of process and recording process. Things also demanded more professionalism. If I was recording a singer and I was like, dude, I just captured your emotion, that was great in hardcore, right? We're done. Great lyrics, great emotion, cool. Couple of takes, not anymore, right? Even in that sort of more corporate emo stuff, it was like, no, do it again, do it again, do it again. Like, and the bands themselves wanted that higher level perfectionism because they wanted the songs to translate onto
Sure.
pop radio and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, like, is this still fun?
Mhm.
Because I'm a punk rock kid and it was always fun. And it started to become a little less. When you get into pop, Ariana and 1D and all that stuff magnifies even more.
I
And it
bet.
really is like a label is not looking for you to like heal somebody's soul. And they don't care if the artist is a freak or not, or had a bad day or any of that stuff. None of that stuff factors. They like want a hit, like a real, like bona fide, like hit. And
Mm.
like as a producer, they're looking at you as the person who's to deliver the hit. And I'm like, yeah, but I just made friends with this person and Ariana's great. And, Harry from 1D came from wherever village. And like, like I'm getting to know these people and labels didn't care.
What's the pressure like? Is it immense?
It's insane. And, and, and I was very conflicted about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Because
again,
you're growing close to them. Yeah, absolutely.
I just come from a place of soul. I'm not like
Sure.
I was very conflicted about the corporate expectations. And that's why I didn't last for like a lot of people's second records or, that kind of thing. Um, just because I think spiritually, I had issues with watching, especially female pop stars, be treated terribly,
Mm,
be treated like objects and treated like commodities, and
yeah.
I've seen it, and I've been up close, and I've all that lore that people talk about. It's real and it's ugly, and it's hard to be a vehicle for it, because as the producer in those worlds, you're supposed to sort of be a conduit between. And I was just kind of like, man, you're exploiting this person. Like, it was
Mm,
very, very difficult for me with my upbringing and my punk rock ethos and stuff like that. And musically, it became interesting as well because for me, what I think makes artists last is having something unique about them. Panic had to have this Beatles element to them, or else it's not successful. 303 had to pull in like Little John and the Beastie Boys. You know what I mean? Like just weird. Like, but
mhm.
it was still kind of
Sure.
emo, but it was also kind of Little John. It was like, what is this music? Like everything has to be weird. And like you get into a situation like One Direction, and it's like, yeah, they want it to have a signature, but it's not supposed to be weird. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
supposed to be huge,
Yeah.
big corporate stuff. And so I I found I found the climate to be very strange. What I ended up doing was finding my own ways to cut through that and still have my slam, right? Which was like for One Direction, Simon just didn't believe in the project. Simon's launched more boy bands than anybody. And I was working on X Factor at the time. So I was friends with Simon and friends with all of his
Yeah.
crew. He just wasn't feeling it at all. He was just like, they won't dance. They'll never be successful. That's what he kept saying.
Wow.
Said they won't dance because they refused. They would not do that boy band stuff, those coordinated moves and all that stuff. He said they won't dance and they won't do like riffs, like only Zayn, right? So he was like, yeah, I just don't see it. He just didn't see it. And so the task fell on me as like, yo, how are you going to make this band successful when the dude who created the band
Doesn't
doesn't
believe in it.
believe in it? And the reasons he doesn't believe in it are things that are part of his success formula for years, the dancing, riffing, cheesy, boy bands. Like that's what he made his whole career on. Nobody knows that better. And if he doubts the project, there's a reason. You know what I mean? It's not on a whim. Like he's
Yeah.
honest. He's a very honest, straight shooting person. Like everybody knows this from TV. Like he meant it. He was like, I don't think this band is going to be successful. And so those kinds of challenges are where I
Wow.
found my identity. Where I was going, hey, I'm a rebel. I'm a punk rocker. I'm a prove you wrong kind of guy. I'm gonna prove you wrong, Simon. I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna crack a code here that will prove you wrong. And that's exactly what I did for One Direction. And the boys still give me credit for that, which is so cool.
Dude, it's
They
amazing.
give me credit for designing their sound. I was not able to then be like the guy, forever because I don't write hits in the same way that Swedish people do. And
I get it.
like as soon as I crafted the identity, all the Swedish songwriters were like, oh, okay, I see what to do, and like just
Mm,
went and wrote huge hits. But the actual identity crafting was very difficult. It was me and my friend Sabin Kateka. Sabin's a hugely successful songwriter and producer, and now runs a record label. His very first release on his record label is K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, the
Holy
dude,
cow, that thing is huge.
Sabin's
I know.
he's just one of those guys. He's like Max Martin's favorite top liner and Simon Cowell's right hand man. Like, Sabin's the dude. But me and Sabin went in the UK to the Sony records building where Simon had his office, or one of his offices, and we designed One Direction in an office. I had like a portable rig set up, and me and Sabin would write a song, would take us about 2 or 3 hours, make a quick demo, and then Sabin would go around to everybody in the Sony office and be like, do you think this is the sound? And people would be like, nah. And he'd be like, do you think I should play it for Simon? Nah, don't do it. And he would come back to me and be like, no, we don't have it. And we kept writing new
Whoa.
stuff. 3 days writing all this stuff. And we finally wrote a song called One More Night that we were like, I don't know, it feels special. And he went out around and played it to people. And the script was that we were basically taking kind of like Katy Perry sounds. We even name checked her in the song, taking like kind of that sound, Kesha, Katy Perry, that vibe, and put it into sort of a boy band format. He played it to some people in the office, and they were like, yeah. And then Simon has 4 assistants, and they're all in a row. So you walk down this hall, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And Sabin played it for each assistant to see if it was worthy, right? Makes it back to Simon, plays it to Simon, and Simon goes, yeah, you're onto something. He said, it's too old. One More Night. It's too old. That's what he said. He said, it's too old. Sabin comes back to me and he said, dude, we're close. And I said, what if it's not One More Night? What if it's Up All Night? Because that's younger, right?
Sure.
And Sabin goes, that's it. So we rewrite the whole thing, redo the demo, bring it back to Simon, and Simon goes, that's it. That's their sound. And the boys actually had been on this like post X Factor tour. And so they were not around, and they came back from that tour, and I was still in UK. And Sabin goes, all right, well, Simon signed off, but the boys are their own entity. Let's see what they think, right? And they knew, the guys in the band knew that the sound was this big question of like, what are we going to sound like? And they had heard a bunch of demos, and all the traditional songwriters were sending things in, and nobody liked anything. Everybody was shitting all over everything. And the boys were already Beatlemania at that point, just from the show. I mean, fans were stalking them. And so they were already feeling very successful. And I went to Metropolis Studios with Savin, met the boys for the first time, and we played them that song. And I'll never forget Niall pointing to me and being like, that's our sound, just like that. And that was their sound. That's exactly what it was. That's
so
the title
wild.
of the first album. And so, just to sort of bring it back to me, for me, the story isn't about, oh, Up All Night was a huge hit, or, I wasn't part of What Makes You Beautiful, or like whatever. It wasn't about that. It was more just like, it pissed me off that Simon didn't believe in these kids. These kids came from nothing, They went and auditioned for a TV show, They got put together as a band. And then it's like, I looked at that and I was like, what an amazing story. Like, if it doesn't work, that's very sad, If they just go and, one of them's working at Craig's, Greg's or whatever the sausage roll place is. I think it's Greg. Like, I could just like see the whole thing falling apart. And that pissed me off. I don't want to see that. I wanted
You
to
went to
take
bat for them.
I want to take care of them. And the task was, can you pull together these impossible elements to make a unique sound for them that will work? And it did. And Simon, hilarious dude, joked later that he was happy to take credit for the whole thing.
Of course he would.
He said, I didn't think any of this stuff, but I'm happy to take credit for
That's
it.
hilarious.
Which is just typical him. And I think also the boys deserved a lot of credit because they were the first direct marketing success. And I liken it back to our original thought in this conversation where I said, the whole Discord DIY thing became the music industry. And nobody proved that more than One Direction, believe it or not. They were the first band that was DMing all of their fans
Mm,
on a large scale on Twitter. And it was so much to the point where they had made a discipline of it. And they said, listen, nobody believes in our band. It might work in the UK because we were on the show, but we want to be a worldwide success. And I mean, even Savin was like, nah. He's like, Savin kept telling me, oh, there's bands like Westlife and Blue that are big in the UK that never made
never
it
broke
out.
out.
Yeah, he said One Direction will be one of those, without a doubt. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But the boys were not cool with that. And they were DMing their fans all across the world every single day. That was what they became their discipline. And I remember the record came out and it did well in England. It did nothing else anywhere else. Nobody knew who they were. Nobody knew a thing about them. And they got an opportunity to come to the States and play New York and play the Today Show, all from Simon's Juice. It was like, hey, they're going to play the Today Show. Maybe this will do something. And it was very cynical, and everybody was very pessimistic about it. And I got a call from my manager at the time being like, hey, did you work on this One Direction album? And I'm like, Heather, you booked it. You're my manager. Like, I did.
Did you work on it?
Right? She had forgotten. And I was like, yeah, why? She's like, oh, because I can't get to work. They've shut down Times Square.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? She said, the story apparently is that the band had been DMing their fans in the States for like the last 6 months and had told their fans, hey, we're playing in Times Square and blah, blah, blah. And their fans all skipped
Dude,
school.
that's nuts.
They swarmed Times Square, and the band became an overnight success and became the biggest band
The
in the world.
grassroots. They literally, dude, that's
DIY.
insane.
It
Absolutely.
was just big, and it was that same thing where like I felt connected to Fugazi because I was talking to Ian, and Brendan Canty also worked at the record store and whatever, that feeling of like these guys are my friends. They talk to me. One Direction did that on a huge scale. It's the exact same thing. They inspired that in their fans, and their fans felt connected enough that they went and swarmed Times Square. And dude, overnight, hugest band. It was crazy. So
Unbelievable.
yeah, really cool. So I guess like it's a long-winded answer, but the way that working in pop and working in all this other stuff was not so comfortable for me. Uh Being who I am and being who I was, and having to be so corporate and so professional, it's still uncomfortable for me. Like I
Sure.
think music is you bearing your soul, and
The tension of it all. Absolutely. Yeah.
and it's therapeutic in that way and all
Sure.
that stuff. And that's sort of what I still believe. So being part of the corporate music industry has always been a little bit tough, but I've tried to find my little ways. Ariana Grande, same thing. Nobody believed in Ari. She was just a kid on
Crazy.
Nickelodeon. She had a red bow in her hair, and everybody thought she was a really forgettable, star. And that pissed me off because she's so talented, and
Mm.
she's so cool. She became like my little sister, and we worked 18 months on the first album. I was her executive
Wow.
producer. 18 months because the label didn't they believed that maybe she could become a Universal Republic grade artist, but they didn't feel like she started that way. And they were not going to. The thing about Republic is they will not release anything unless they think or unless they know. They'll market test it on the internet for months. If they know they have a hit, they'll release it. That's the only time Republic will do it.
Did you know you had a hit?
You know, I just really liked her. I really thought she had an amazing spirit and amazing voice, and she was also onto something that resonated with me in terms of this One Direction thing, because One Direction hadn't happened yet when I started working with Ari. She, just like them, was one of the original Twitter kids, and I've never seen anything like it since. She had thousands of drafts in her Twitter account, thousands of like post ideas. Like now this seems normal because everybody does social media and it's like part of being an artist.
Sure.
When she pioneered it, it was very, very new. And she had a fan base from Victorious, and she knew what she was doing with that fan base, and she literally would be sitting in the studio with me being like, I think this is the one for today. And she'd be talking about a draft that she had had for months. And I'd be like, why? And she would have this sense of like what was going on in current events and what people were talking about on social media. And she knew how this whole world worked, and now we're so familiar with memes and trends
Sure.
but at that time, it's very new stuff. And she had a sense that she could flex it. So interestingly enough, it's the same thing that resonated with me is I saw in Ari and 1D the same thing I saw in Ian Mackay, where Ian was like, yeah, I'm gonna go figure out what the laws are in DC
Or make
and
this
we're gonna put
happen.
X's on our
Yeah.
hands. We're gonna
Yep.
do it our way. And Ari and 1D, same thing. It's like they're part of these huge corporate machines, but they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it our way, So I think that was what I saw was just I like that spirit. I think music is a place where the outlier should be able to have the most success. I think that like rags to riches stories
Mm.
like Hendrix and Elvis and stuff like that, Beatles,
Mhm.
we have to be the place where that can happen because there aren't a lot of places where that can happen. I mean, you can do it. Like my grandfather came over here with zero and became like a really
It's
successful
awesome.
doctor, but being a doctor requires a very focused set of discipline and and so the drive was the same, but like the discipline is very regimented, because if you fuck up, you might hurt somebody, right? It's like with good
Yeah.
reason, but like in music, like you could just be like nuts and still be really successful. And so I think that's what it is for me. I think that's what I like about my footprint and the Wikipedia for me looks like it's super scattered. I'm like, I did an Underoath record and I did an Ariana Grande record, and people are like, what's going on with this guy? And whatever. But it's like that's the common thread. It's every single thing you see on my Wikipedia is something that I would characterize as a fuck you project.
Mm.
It's like, hey, everybody told Ari she's not gonna have any success. Fuck you. Huge artist, huge movie star. I mean, just huge, like
Yeah.
unbelievable,
Massive.
right? And like I I know what I contributed to Ari, and I know that if we hadn't done the work that we did, that she wouldn't be a huge star. And I mean, I know how formative that was, almost more than any of my other artists. That was a big, it was
Mm.
a big, big piece of solving something for her that she needed in order to become what she's become. Uh, but it was a real rebellion. It was a real fuck you. And so that's the common thread for me between all the stuff that I've done, that really is exciting for me and has kept it fun and has kept it weird, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's the thing that binds all the artists together, is that we defy expectations, and that's what music should do.
That's awesome. I love that. Very, very cool, profound words from you. I really, really like that. I'm going to ask you a really tough question because everyone, when I ask this, it's difficult. What are some of the? I'm not going to ask you the one, but what are some of the records you're most proud of, and what are some of the songs you're most proud of?
It is a tough question. You know, I think most of them are more for the story than the actual
No, I get that.
song. Um, the first one that popped up in my head was 303 Don't Trust Me. Um, just because it's such a funny story. Um, like we were making that record again for like $10,000, had no expectations. Uh, and the band wanted to do a collaboration with Katy Perry. Katy was not successful at that time either,
Really?
but they knew each other. Yeah, I Kissed a Girl had like just started. It
Wow.
was like very, very early stages. And so there was talk of trying to get Katy to collaborate on this song. And when they first sang the song to me, the "She Wants to Touch Me," woo,
Uh-huh.
that whole section did not exist. And the only section that existed was "Don't trust a hoe, never
Hmm.
trust a hoe." And it was, those guys are the most hilarious dudes on the planet. They had both just broken up with their girlfriends. And it was like a it was like a breakup, funny
Yeah, screw
breakup.
you song. Yeah.
That's all it
Yeah.
was. I mean, and it was literally from their lives because they had both just broken up. And so I was like, well, if Katie's going to be on it, wouldn't it be funny if like the ex-girlfriend was part of the, like it
Yeah.
was like a argument between you two. And
Yes.
so I came up with "She wants to touch me, woo," but it was "He wants to touch me, woo," and it was, even Sean scratched the vocal with "he" in there because it was a guide vocal for Katie. And we sent it to her and she didn't want to do it. We collaborated with her later on Starstruck, but like she didn't want to do this one. And so Sean re-sang it as "she," and it still doesn't make complete,
Sure.
like it only makes sense the way we wrote it. It's part of the
Mm,
story of that song. And then the other part is the Helen Keller part, which is
yeah.
controversial and very sort of unwoke, and
In 2025. Yeah.
yeah, we never would have done it now. But at the time it was still a little questionable. And Sean, who wrote it, when it came time to finish the album, came to me and he was like, dude, we were making a list of all the things we had to change on the record. At the end of a process, 12 songs, you have all this like punch
Sure.
items. And he was like, yeah, dude, we gotta rewrite the lyrics to the bridge of "Don't Trust Me." And I was like, dude, that's the most hilarious thing I've ever heard. Shush girl, shut your lips, do the Helen Keller talking with your hips. I was like, you're crazy. And I'll never forget it. He was like, dude, he was like, my parents will kill me. They will kill me. They'll kill me. And that's all we were thinking about. We didn't think the song was going to be big. We thought we were going to sell like 4,000 records total. I mean, we just had no clue. And so he was like, we're changing it because my parents are going to kill me. And I was like, dude, I don't think you should change it. Like, let's get some other opinions. And so we went out to dinner. I took them out to dinner. My wife came, and my wife's a visual artist. She's not a music artist.
Mm,
And so she's kind of the objective
sure.
opinion. So I was like, don't take my word for it. Ask her. And I hadn't prepped her or anything. And she had never heard it. She had no clue. Right. And the guys said, these are the lyrics. And she's like, I think it's on the edge. I really do. I think it's just on the edge. And that line blew up that band.
Yeah,
That
it's
line
memorable. Yeah.
Was featured in the back of Entertainment Weekly magazine, which at the time was a trend-setting thing. And it was like songs that we love. And that line was quoted on the back of that magazine. And that's what blew the band up. And so it's a difficult question to your point of like, what are your favorite songs? I love them all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Sure.
proud of them all. But that one, I just think the story is wild. And again, it's like all I wanted was for these quirky, funny guys to have major success.
Success. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like I don't care how we get there. You know what I mean? But we got there, and that was such a unique way of them getting there. And it's been amazing. They're bigger now than they ever were. They've become this like influential thing that everybody looks up to them, and it's really, really incredible to watch.
That's awesome. Well, I know you mentioned earlier being at the when we were young festival and kind of having that moment of seeing a part of what you've been a part of. What how do you look at the legacy and the impact that you've had on not only fans and artists but just overall like the legacy that you mentioned legacy earlier,
Yeah, it's it's an amazing thing because the whole time, so I blew up with the emo scene, and then the whole time was like, man, I really want to be one of those singer-songwriter gunslinger, types, Andrew Watt, Max Martin, Dr. Luke, and I've met a lot of those guys and Ryan Tedder, and it's like
Mm,
I still that's, isn't that the ultimate goal? You could be rich, you can do whatever you want, you can have a team of people under you, it's like Diplo or like whatever, like that's always been the goal. But after when we were young, and I was like looking at this sort of legacy of like, okay, well, I'm looking up to all these hit makers. I'd like to have more hits or whatever.
mm,
Now I don't care because it's like, dude, like I'm one of the founders of a movement.
hmm
What could be cooler? It's like, and again, it's like I still haven't found what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? But I guess that's what I was looking for because that's cooler than
mm,
like being like, oh, I had a bunch of number ones. It's like, who cares? You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it doesn't mean anything unless those number ones save somebody's life,
Mm,
right? But I can look at the emo scene and look at when we were young and be like, yeah, definitely lives saved. Definitely. 100%. Like,
mm.
definitely. And so I think like that to me is what's so beautiful about that legacy and what's unique about it. And so it's not exactly what I thought I was looking for, but it is what I was looking for.
I love that, man. That's awesome. Well, Matt, I know you cannot predict the future, but what do you think the future looks like for you?
It's interesting. I'm very open. I don't know. I don't know if it's like that I'd like to be like making records for like 20 more years, maybe
Hmm
like five. Like at a certain point, I think I become irrelevant to the youth. You know what I mean? Like it's like lucky right now. I've had a resurgence of emo and stuff like that, and the relevance is sort of built in, but like I definitely don't want to be like a super old person trying to be like, what are the kids like? You know what I mean? So it's like I think the next chapter is I have a great like production assistant. He's like be amazing to see him like have success. So I'd like to train some people or like, impart some knowledge. I uh I would like to launch some technological stuff that I think is nifty and I think could be helpful for producers in the future. I have a technology that I've built that really facilitates online sessions. It's something that I developed during
Oh,
COVID.
cool.
It's not super useful at the moment, but I think as the future unfolds, I think it's not it's not about the technology. It's not about the futurism. It's about the economy of it. It's
Mhm.
about a younger producer, not so fortunate as me, wanting to write a bunch of stuff in Nashville and not being able to afford to make the trip, but they should still not be cut off from that opportunity,
Mm.
So maybe the online thing could get a little bit more accessible right now. And during COVID, it was a very, very rude awakening for people because they couldn't plug stuff in.
Mhm.
Things like Zoom and shit like that. There's latency. There's things that you don't realize are going on these online platforms that like
Mm.
very prohibitive to music making.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so we built a platform that eliminates all those
Oh, cool.
barriers. And so that's something that I'd like to see, gradually over time become more normalized, and I'd like that to be a part of my next chapter. So yeah, I mean, I think it is difficult. Of course, I'm gonna write songs. Of course, I'm gonna produce stuff. I'm active, and I do still love it, and it's still fun for me. But I'm hoping for something that pulls me out of the windowless rooms, because A, it's a windowless room, and it gets old after a while. And B, I just don't want to ever be that old guy trying to figure out like, oh, I heard that TikTok thing is real cool. Like, just like, man, that freaks me out. Because I know guys like that. I
Yeah.
know producers who are lifers, and it's like they wear that as a badge of honor. Like, I'm a lifer. And I'm like, that kind of sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Like there's careers where it's cool and you can have like tenure and seniority as like an elder professor and shit like that. And it's like, yeah, I could see that being something that would be fun for me, teaching, that could be cool. But like actually like being in the studio with some 18-year-old kid who like wants to stay up all night,
Try to relate to him.
do crystal meth, and you're like, I could do crystal meth like the best of them. Like, that's not for me, So I think that's sort of the landscape.
Awesome. Well, Matt, I've super enjoyed this conversation and super honored to have you hang out with me. And man, you got some cool stories. Just really cool to hear your perspective, and really stoked that you've been able to be a part of something that's, impacted people, and just the music you've been a part of. It's really cool that you have such a good viewpoint on it, and level head, and humbleness to it. It's a beautiful thing, and man, I wish you nothing but success in the future. And I'm really stoked again to have you on, and hopefully we get to hang in the future. Would love to get a drink with you sometime. Hey, thank you, listener, for tuning in again and again. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you again for just being on this journey with me. Really, really am stoked to have you guys reach out, send messages, like, subscribes, all that stuff. I really deeply appreciate it. If you'd like to add me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rumors Are True Cast, if you'd like to like and subscribe, you know the drill. If you'd like to leave a review, feel free. Just be nice. Just kidding. But really, thank you again for all the nice, kind words. Thank you to Matt Squire. So honored to have you on this podcast. It was really cool to hear your perspective and your journey. Really cool to get to know you as well. So thank you again to Matt Squire. Got some incredible artists on the horizon, guys, and you know it. Nostalgia is still a heck of a drug. The podcast is produced by Wesley Hill, artwork by Jared Chase Bowser, and music by Brian Jaron. This episode is dedicated to the memory of my dear friend, producer, and man of many talents, Brian Jaron.